Hello, everyone. This is Into the Infinite. I'm Charlie, and I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm happy that we're doing this. This is the Alchemical Book Club. What does that mean? Well, I think of alchemy as a way to transmute and work with emotions. What that means to me is taking one emotion and sort of turning it into another one and transforming it along the way to something that's healing and a little bit better for us. Now, this book club does not replace therapy or anything like that. So if you are getting that, bravo you. Also, don't think that this is not to supplement, or this is not to replace that, I should say. This is more supplementary, things to do along the way with it, if that's what you're doing. If you don't need it, great, welcome. So the first book we're covering is The Power of Regret by Daniel Pink. Yay! This book is amazing. It was fantastic. I read it in an entire evening because I was that obsessed with it. It was just good, and it's an easy read, and Daniel Pink makes his books so they're so straightforward. And what I loved about this book was that it really laid out the power of regret to create a meaningful life. What does that mean? Most people think regret is a negative emotion, right? It's on like the lower vibration of things, so it's not that great. But what this tells me, what this book did for me, was really highlighted. And I'll read this line for you. So Brene Brown reviewed the book and gave a quote for the back. I cannot, for the life of me, summarize it as well as this. Okay? The idea of no regrets doesn't mean living with courage. It means living without reflection. The world needs this book and more reflection now. So good. Because we think about when people say like, oh, I have no regrets. I'm happy for you, but also what about sinking into that, right? This is where the Alchemical Book Club to me is really about doing the shadow work and diving in a little deeper to see what that means and how that works for folks, right? Because I think a lot of people say no regrets as a way to push away discomfort, to push away awkwardness, to push away times that they've fumbled and the awareness that they may actually have regret, but not be processing it, right? So I think it's become this cultural way of saying, throwing caution to the wind and taking a leap. But also we need the reflection, right? The reflection makes us human. The reflection on things that didn't work out or didn't go well gives us a way to integrate lessons and then move forward while also alchemizing, so transforming emotions that may not have been so good in the first place. And it allows us to kind of move in our journey through and to really integrate stuff. That to me is a huge, huge deal. Big deal. So in the book, he talks about the benefits of regret. Now, he first sort of frames the way that we can feel regret, and he called it upward and downward counterfactuals. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here because I want you to read the book, and I also don't want this video taken down for copyright. So the way that we frame regret can be in upward and downward counterfactuals. So downward counterfactuals sound a little bit like the at leasts, right? It's sort of suck later, benefit now. And then the upward counterfactuals are if only it had happened in blah, blah, blah way, right? So that's sort of, it sucks now, but there's something really rich in that moment that we can take and move forward with. Now in the book, he says that there are many benefits to regret, right? And they're pretty straightforward that you might imagine. But he did, a bunch of research to support this, that they, improve decisions, boost performance, and deepens meaning. And I think this meaning part is something that's really, really important to focus on. Why? Because when we alchemize things, when we take emotions and we really focus on them and we do the inner work, when we're doing the journaling, when we're doing the writing, when we're putting all of those things together, what I really think that means and stands for is this: it helps us to understand what we value, right? This meaning making it cannot happen in a vacuum, right? Certainly you can't think your way to an answer. You can't think your way to something. What I'm understanding is that you also can't just, take meaning and pluck it out of the sky and then that's it, right? Like it develops through our relationship to other things in our lives. So, I think that there's also I love it because it's this meaning piece, right? We tend to say no regrets, but then we also have this disconnect from meaningful life and what that means. Like what means something to us? What, to quote Simon Sinek, what is our why, right? What's the reason why we're doing stuff? And I think that ultimately he says there's 4 types of regret. And as I read through, I was like, yeah, this does, the flip side of them, he says, is that they give life meaning. So there's foundation regrets, boldness regrets, moral regrets, and connection regrets. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on them because, again, I want you to read the book. The good news is that it's new, so most public libraries, which I recommend using. Why? Because it's like the OG sharing economy. Just do it. Most libraries have this book because it's newer. So it's an excellent dive into, the ways that we regret. Foundation is like security regret. Boldness is like, oh, I wish I would have done this more. And, moral regrets are when we feel like we should have done the right thing and we feel like we did the wrong thing. And connection regrets are where we wish we would have made a connection and reached out when we didn't, and all of that stuff. And it was a really powerful reframing of the what regret means, right? Like we feel regret and we're like, oh, there's awkwardness, there's weirdness, shit, I didn't do something that I should have done. But it's that feeling where it allows us to really sink into it and then let it go. Right? He has exercises throughout the book in the second half of the book to really move through and process regret. And they were really powerful to read through. And I started to do some of them, and wow, it makes such a difference, right? The quality of the questions that he's asking in those sections is really, really profound and helpful. And it's almost like regret as a portal to meaning. So regret as a portal to meaning. And I think that that's really important. That's like a thing. That's a really important thing because it allows us to understand what's most important. And sometimes we do that by virtue of the way that we relate to others, but then sometimes we do it by virtue of how we relate to things that we've done and experienced too, right? So I think that everyone should read this book. I don't want to make this video too long. I tried to make it a bit shorter, but the Alchemical Book Club is, this is the first book for it. And I think that this is something that everyone, I don't want to say everyone should read, because like what is a should? What does that even mean? Like in the big picture, what is a should other than like someone pushing something on you? But this book and most of Daniel Pink's books are like this. It really does offer a great deal of value. And I think that, so if you watch some of the tarot videos that I do, you'll know that the Taurus North Node and all of that stuff, astrologically speaking, is kind of highlighting right now things that we value and things that are most important to us. For those of you that don't believe in that, that's fine. But then there's also, just the pandemic and wars and things that are so outside of our control are happening that are really pushing us to understand why we want what we want, why we want to do what we do, and why we want to exist in the way that we do, right? So there's this big question mark of why. And I think that when we reflect, it's that reflection piece, right? It's like the quote on the back of this book by Brene Brown said, like that Brene Brown's quote, the idea of no regrets doesn't mean living with courage. It means living without reflection. The world needs this book and more reflection now. What? So powerful. It's so powerful. So I think that and the subtitle is The Power of Regret, How Looking Backward Moves Us Forward. And I think that it is, it's incredible, right? Like, I know my generation was raised on that whole idea of like YOLO, like super old saying, but that's really what a lot of people treat it as. Like, I forget any consequence, just do it. Okay, but if there are consequences short and long term, we also need to integrate the lessons from those so that we can move forward, because those are going to help us. They're going to help make our suitcases lighter, because we're not going to need to carry the memories of no regret. We're not going to need to carry the things that are needed to consistently launch all the time. Just like always, this always sort of always jumping. And I'm not saying don't play it, I'm not saying play it safe, because that's not it. I have way too much Aquarius and Sag in my chart to be advocating for that kind of shit. What I'm talking about, and I'm not saying do things that are unsafe, I'm talking about things that make you feel uncomfortable, right? This video, this channel, I should say, made me feel uncomfortable to do. Tarot made me feel uncomfortable to put onto YouTube, but I'm still doing it. So that to me is huge, right? Are people going to get it? No. And even generally speaking, are people going to understand me? No. I'm socially awkward as hell. And socially awkward as hell. And I don't always, it's these moments of when that happens, what do you take from it and what do you learn? Where do you go with it, right? Keep in your high vibe about it. I'm not saying, this isn't advocating for staying in regret or feeling regret or anything like that. It's not about sitting in that feeling. It's about awareness of the feeling and moving through the feeling so that you can get to the other side of it, which is a really, really, really rich place, because then you have meaning. Then you know what is meaningful to you, and that is your why. That's your why. So Alchemical Book Club. I know it's a short video. Typically with book clubs that I've run in the past, I've run a couple of them, I would, dive into the meaning of the book, and I'd sit and have a huge discussion. because of copyright, we can't do that. And I also want to encourage you to buy the book. So every 2 weeks, what is this Alchemical Book Club anyway? Now that you've gotten to the end of this video. This is a series where I'm going to dive into books that have helped with the integration of emotions and a bit of a shadow. So it's just shadow work through books that I've read that have been helpful and that others recommend to me that are equally helpful in that regard. So we're doing this together. We're jumping in. We're doing it. So take that and run with it. And I will see you on the next Alchemical Book Club. It's coming up. It's coming up soon. 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks on Wednesday. Why? Because Wednesdays need a little freshening up sometimes, right? So take care and have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you on the myriad number of ways that I can connect with you on here. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel and it helps me know what content means something to you. And it also helps me to continue to develop content and, you know, for this, what I hope to be a little bit of a community on here. So thank you so much for your time and your eyes. And I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you.